Well, it'd be a combination of what I'm doing today, which is a combination of Facebook and TikTok. Just get in there. I would find the right community of individuals who knew very crystal clearly the path to walk on, and plug in with that group and run with them, be consistent, do the work, do it diligently and consistently, and then give myself permission to stop, adjust, tackle it again, stop, adjust, run it by this group of peers and coaches and team, and then do it again. So that's what I would do, Simon.
Welcome to MLM Nation, a podcast of leaders, by leaders, for leaders, hosted by Simon Chan. He's built a team of over 200,000 and is now a full-time MLM coach and trainer. So if you're ready to level up your business, join us now. Let's do this.
MLM Nation, this is Simon Chan. I'm fired up to bring our special guest today. And it's so weird we're recording this on January 2nd, and I'm a little nervous on this interview. And I'll tell you why in a second. But we have my good friend, Robert Arthur. Hey, Robert, are you ready to make it happen?
I am. I was born ready, but even more so going into this exciting new year. It's an honor to be here, Simon.
Anyway, I was nervous to be on here because Robert, if you don't know, I know some of you diehard fans. We're going to our 10th year of MLM Nation. And Robert was kind enough. I always felt a kindred spirit to Robert, but he was one of the kind enough. Back in 2015, not many people knew who I was, but he trusted me to be one of the first to be on the show, be one of the first episodes on episode 13. Believe it or not, we're in episode 840 something, I think, and episode 13, where Robert talked about using the Sinaloa formula for network marketing success. And definitely go check that out. For those who don't know Robert, he's a former U.S. national champion and international competitor in ski archery. And actually, in his upcoming book, I saw some really cool pictures of that. He was a massage therapist and then got started in network marketing 28 years ago. Since then, he's built a team of over 22,000 distributors in 9 countries. He's earned millions in lifetime commissions. And in this current company, Robert is a 1-star servant leader and serves on the Field Leadership Council and has received numerous awards, including the Man of the Year in 2021. Robert also just wrote his first book, which we will talk a little bit about, called The 7 Pillars to Overcome Burnout and Create a Purpose-Driven Life and Business. Now, aside from business, Robert Arthur loves the outdoors, from golf, camping, to competing in cross-country skiing, to skiing marathons, which I didn't even know what that was, but it's crazy stuff. And I think his biggest accomplishment is to be married to his honeybee, Joy, for 27 years, got 2 kids and 4 grandkids. So anyway, Robert, long intro, but you definitely deserve it. It's great to have you back 10 years later, even though we touch base all the time. But thank you for being on MLM Nation the first year. And we're excited to be here. Tell us, how did you go from being a ski archery champion to network marketing?
Well, interestingly enough, they both coincided right about the same time. Now that I think about it, my journey, I grew up in the Deep South, and I've been in wellness now for 28 years. And first of all, growing up, anybody on this listening to this in the Deep South, I always thought a healthy regime was biscuits and gravy and sugar with a little bit of tea during the day. So to answer your question, though, succinctly, it was back in the early 90s, if I recall, my very first year going into massage therapy school up in Utah was the very same year I was introduced to the sport you're describing, which remains a very grassroots sport. It was much bigger and still is in Europe with ski archery. So they coincided because like you, I love how active you live and your mini-me and your kids, your boys and your family. You can relate to this, and probably most of you watching, we live life, including being active physically, mentally, spiritually. So it just happened. They both serendipitously kind of collided, that ski archery made so much sense. And then the healing arts made so much sense. And then crazy enough, the third component was my car had just been totaled out. And I was introduced, one of my individuals who I was mentoring, I used to mentor people hiking, backpacking. She had a nutritional product, which she introduced to me. And that was my first official kind of endeavor I say back in network marketing because my mom introduced to it back in junior high, but it came full circle. So that was the three things: that the skiing, the healing art journey, network marketing. They kind of all collided, if you will.
Since your mom did it, but you were never interested as a kid.
Well, I was a kid, man. I mean, we grow up. My mom was a teacher. Anybody have beautiful parents? I know. I know. I say that heart on a fragile heart because some of us didn't have that opportunity. Maybe our parents went on to heaven earlier or whatever happened. Regardless, my journey specifically, I was blessed to have my dad instilled in me that yearning to explore the planet, that everything's a new frontier to explore. And my mom instilled in me, I fell in love with the concept, Simon, and those watching, maybe you can relate to this, my friends, because if you relate to Simon, I'm sure you'll relate to this because of his big heart. What if there was a business concept where the heart of it, the essence of it, is seeing the light, seeing that, what I would say, God-given power, the power within, and uplifting people. And the more people you uplifted and help see their own light, the more your business would just keep substantially building. And what if that was the essence of a business concept when done right with integrity and ethics? And my mom taught me that. She was in the pink company. She won like 5 pink cars. So yeah, that's how I fell in love back in junior high, but I wasn't old enough. And as soon as I became of age, my mom signed me up in that cosmetic, more women related company. And so I didn't do much with it, Simon, but a few years later, it's when I was introduced to it again.
So you always knew the industry worked to show your mom's success. You just had to find the right vehicle.
Yeah, I didn't have any baggage. I was already in love with the concept.
So how did you do once you got started?
Once I got started, my first initial foray into network marketing, my girlfriend at the time borrowed my car and cracked the engine block. So there I was with no car. I was in that company. Remember, one of my students in my backpacking trip introduced me. So I was kind of playing with it, had a few customers. And I had already learned that company wasn't for me because when the sales trainer came to teach, he was teaching us gimmicks and what I would say unethical practices. And so I was kind of on that edge looking for something else. And so when I was introduced to it with the right company and an ethical group, I went out and knocked on 45 doors with no car, pulling a luggage carrier around Salt Lake City, Utah, riding the city bus, knocking on doors with my product in hand. And so it was an interesting foray into experience learning what didn't work, because of all those 45 doors, I believe it was like maybe 7 doors actually opened, and about half of those 7 were kind of rude and the other half were polite, but no thanks. And I went on. And my very first customer was this beautiful little lady. She was probably in her 70s, who I met on this city bus with my little luggage carrier. And I'll never forget, I went up to, I think it was the 7th floor of her senior citizen complex. I did the old, I don't know the answer, but let me call my upline. And I three-wayed my sponsor, who happened to be up at an hour north, and we talked and he answered some questions, and she bought my product at the time. So that was my very first customer in my network marketing experience. So.
And that's such an awesome story. What year was this?
That was probably, I would say that would be in 1992, probably.
Well, what made you decide to knock on doors? Is that what your mom taught you?
Well, my car was totaled, and Mom didn't teach me that, because what I didn't mention is when I was trying to find my way in life, I was also a Kirby vacuum, salesman. And then I was also a little telemarketer for a little insurance company. So I did some little forays into that. So I just knew, hey, I'm going to go out there, ride the bus, talk to people. Let's knock on a few doors. Let's just, I didn't question the fact that any of it worked. I simply knew that I just had to talk to people in whatever form or shape or fashion that would take.
How did you overcome the rejection? Like, you knock on doors and no one opens the door.
Yeah. at the time, looking back at it, it's kind of funny because I guess because of how I approach my athletics and sports, and I just knew that, especially because, again, I grew up in the deep South. I had the lungs, but I didn't have the ski ability. So picture how I went from there to skiing at an international level. I fell a lot. And so I guess looking back at it, part of the reality is that I knew that falling and getting back up again, I always tell my team for years, have a rubber butt. I already had a rubber butt mindset. So my butt wasn't, it's kind of funny for me to say that word. Pardon me, guys. It's kind of entertaining because I never cuss or use some of those words, but butt's kind of funny. But anyway, the point is, I guess the simplest way to answer that question, Simon, is at the time, I didn't see it as rejection. I just thought, oh, that strategy wasn't the best strategy. Let's do something else.
So what was the turning point for you? Like, till you started having success? Aside from that lady that purchased from you, I think that was the lesson there, using your upline, right, to answer it. But what was the turning point where things started happening for you?
Well, in that company, another part of the story is my car was totaled out. I didn't have any money either. I had more month than money. So I actually gave my sponsor my bow and arrow and a pair of skis as collateral for some product that I carried or my luggage carrier. So that was another part of the story. And so after I enrolled the beautiful little lady here as my first customer, then my next 2 or 3 customers were people I already knew. One of my instructors at my massage school I was in, 2 of my fellow students, 1 of my fellow athletes. And so the other lesson that came on the tail end of knock, knock, stranger, I quickly realized that when you have a degree of trust, that is a much easier door to open up, and the door will stay open because they already have a certain degree of rapport and they know at least a little bit of what kind of person you are.
So those are much easier sales from people you trust.
Oh, heavens, yes. And it didn't take me too long because I was proactive, because I wanted to get my bow and arrow and skis back. I had to sell so much product to get my skis back. And so I had a motive too, a motivation. So
that's a big lesson, everyone. Like, it's not the lack of resources. It's always the lack of resourcefulness, right? Because Robert didn't have any resources, no money, no car, but he uses ski equipment as collateral to get byproducts to sell.
Through the years, I've heard all kinds of stories, from hawking a ring to selling the TV at your house. I'm sure you and I, if you've been around this type of industry any amount of time, it never is the lack of anything, physical or material. It's simply maybe the lack of, Simon said, creativity in our this beautiful imagination that all of us have.
So how do you get that, right? How do you talk about the lack of creativity and imagination? What's the first step to being more resourceful?
I would say the first step to being more resourceful is realize that in each of our own perfectly imperfect ways, this is a little plaque my team bought me years ago. I use it all the time. So is to, first of all, realize that Bob, the imposter my imposter's name is Bert. Bert's always telling me I'm not resourceful enough. You're not as creative as Simon. You're not as imaginative as that author or that person or that leader. First of all, it's acknowledging that we're all perfectly imperfect. Even our people we have on pedestals that write the books that are on stage and that are iconic and that are leaders, every darn one of those women and men are very flawed, and they're very much imperfect, and they very much have a ton of doubt. The difference is the definition of courage. The definition of courage says, okay, is when we acknowledge the fact that we have doubts and fears, and we just simply step through it and into it. So I would say the simplest answer to that question is, number one, realize that we are resourceful. We have our own set of, all of us see life through filters. That being said, our filters are unique and they're beautiful and they're tied to our life experience. that no one else has ever walked this planet, which is in the billions now. No one has the set of life experiences, the set of God-given talents poured into them, and that unique perspective that me, that you, Simon, that you watching this has. And just embrace that. Embrace who you are. You're unique, you're imperfect, and you're flawed. That's what makes us powerful.
That is so good. I'm just thinking of a follow-up question there, because you're right. You know, we're all perfectly imperfect. Definitely me. I have doubts. I have fears. I have things that are messed up. And I know you a fist bump here. And I think if you see people on social media, that's a highlight reel, right? Like that's the highlights. That's not their normal life.
Yeah.
You know, people are talking about like sometimes I'm sure you have grandkids. Like I'm such a great father. Oh, you just didn't know how. Yesterday was a total nightmare in my house being parenting. But you talk about courage, right? Going through that. I think, how do you get that courage to go through because everything you do, like you just started a new adventure, you wrote a book. How do you have that courage and not let that doubt stop you?
I always love things in threes. 1, 2, 3. 1, have role models that are courageous, and not just see that the real side of their life. Dig deep enough to know that all of our role models, again, have the same doubts, fears, uncertainties. Number 1. Number two, I would say it would serve all of us to really take a moment and realize, as you said, Simon, what courage really is. It's just, again, it's never the lack of those, maybe the negative. It's never the lack of doubts, uncertainty. It's always having them and just stepping through. So realize what courage actually is. It's just stepping through it, flawed and, imperfectly stepping through it, with not always knowing the end result, or not always knowing the end game, but we have an end game in mind, but not knowing what the journey will consist of to reach that peak moment. So, and I would say number 3, just realize that, I think I'm going to paraphrase, is it Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar? It's the paraphrase, and you may know the exact quote, but it's something like, we will never find success unless we actually start the journey. Like, we'll never move into anything substantial that's tied to our goals and end game if we do not take the first darn step. And so just realize it's forward momentum with a few halts and pauses, a little forward momentum, a little back. I'm sure you've seen this before, but I love teaching the concept of a picture. This is a picture. You're here, and over here is where we want to be. Income wise, impact wise, husband, human being wise, grandfather, papa. And it's a next level version of ourselves. And we're taught, what we're taught is that, okay, here we are. When in reality, there's this chasm, there's this valley between us, and includes a turbulent river that we have to go through. And the journey to a new identity, it's saying what we want to be, the inception of the ideal. And then we start, and then we begin to build some new habits along the way, and we find some success, and then we backslide into old habits, and then we have to replace a few more. And it's this backsliding and going up a little bit, backsliding, going up a little bit. And we finally arrive at this place, and then there's a new chasm, clearly. But the point is, most of us aren't taught. I know I wasn't till later in life. Thankfully, I was introduced to this concept of giving myself permission and giving myself grace. I talk about this a lot in my book that I just finished. It was that part of it's the law of forgiveness. And one of the biggest activities and processes we can do in our life that will free us of so much of the shackles of self-doubt and this disempowering talk is to have grace for ourselves and be gracious enough to forgive ourselves of maybe not stepping into that person we know we can be soon enough. Realize and give ourselves permission to be in that process.
That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the message that people need to hear. Like, we're all messed up. No one's perfect. And but the difference is we give ourselves grace. right? Like I think a lot of times people are very if you're hard on yourself, then you just kind of give up, and you just kind of like, when you're hard on yourself, you almost don't want to have that courage anymore because you don't want to fail. Then you become scared to fail. And I want to say, elaborate a little bit. You talk about having the end game in mind. I think that's it, right? You have the vision. If you have a clear vision and the excitement of that vision, then you're going to go and have that courage. Like, you just wrote a book. You never written a book before, but you had the vision that, hey, this book is going to make an impact on tens of thousands of people. It's going to make a huge impact in the direct selling and also people outside of direct selling, because you talk about multiple streams of income in the book. And having the vision that excites you, right? And that's why you went out there and did it. But if you had like the vision of, this book may not do well, people are going to laugh at it, no one's going to read it, it's going to be junk, then that doesn't encourage you to go out there. I think that's the same thing with you. I think going back to your journey, even though knocking on the doors, you saw an exciting future ahead of you. And that's why you kept on doing it. What made you write this book after all these years? This book, and which is going to come out soon. And we'll put the link to the show. I think Rob's going to be giving away a lot of freebies and stuff before the book actually launches. We'll put the link in the show notes page. Definitely follow Robert on social media. We'll put the links in there as well. But what motivated you to write this book? Because when I looked at it, it was like a whole lifetime of knowledge there.
Yeah, there was a lot to that. And for those watching and listening, I definitely asked Simon for some positive feedback. And so you were gracious enough to extend that to me. And so, yeah, to sum it up, I would say in the ideal world, every one of us would have something like that for our kids and their kids, not just for our family and loved ones, but for people. As I mentioned before, all of us had our unique set of life experiences. And there's so many lessons. So much of the time we question the value and the impact of, oh, it's just me and I haven't done this or I haven't done that. We do the comparison thing versus the contrast thing. And so I would say, all that being said, I would say the biggest impetus or the biggest motivator from me was, number one, to do something that I've been putting off for years that I see so many people go to the grave with. There's so many of my role models, even right now today, that have so much to give. And so much of that may potentially go to their grave with them, and they just won't have an avenue or place for people to learn some of their life experiences. Number two, it was that next step that I was committed to growing into, meaning, okay, Robert, what's that next level of impact? Because it's my belief that the number one reason why we're all here in this physical body, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, clearly, at least that's my belief. And that's my belief that we're here to make a difference, to make an impact, to serve others. And so putting something down that we pen out, that we write, or that we have, videos or whatever it is, it's a way of honoring the journey and the people that we've been through life with. And it's also honoring our Creator. And I would say number three, it's, to speak very practically, as an entrepreneur, I now have a gift that I could say, Simon, man, I love what you're doing. I love your YouTube. I love the books that you've written, and the way it's kind of dad, the way you show up. Here's also, if you're open to this, I would love to gift you something. So it's also a way for me to honor this life journey and experience and perspective, and to have a gift. Because I've been on many podcasts, and through the years, at the end of the podcast, I would say, Robert, I would do my imposter thing sometimes. It caused me to doubt my ability to finish something. And so it's one of those key things that kept looming. I kept wanting and desiring to do this. And I just said, okay, we're going to get it done. And to be brutally honest, all the book's content is mine. I did open up enough to use some AI to help me with some of the flow of it. So that was one part of it. And then I also had a couple coaches. You mentioned this already. One of my coaches did a very systematic walkthrough of how to really get it done. And so I just plugged in got the intro done. I got one chapter done. I got the next chapter done. I had the end in mind, but I just bit it off one bite at a time versus tackling the whole darn project. So that was the other reason. Hopefully that encapsulates some of the reasons why, Simon. There's many reasons why, but at the end of the day, it's what type of legacy, what type of impact do we truly have a deep desire to make? So.
There's a lot of lessons there. I think what you just said, thinking one piece at a time, writing the book. I think that's an approach to anything, right? Instead of thinking about, I want to build a team of 100 people, just focus on one customer, one person at a time, or just get one chapter done one day, one piece, and then over like anything. Like I think Brian Tracy talked about that, right? How to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah,
one small little cheese. Most people go for the big thing, right? The consistency beats intensity. What is your worst moment in network marketing?
Several tough moments come to mind. Part of it's the fact of there's been times when I felt like there was some people were abandoning ship, and I would take it personally. And then it took me a while to become mature enough to realize it was their journey, not mine. That's going to happen for anybody who's built any size team. You're going to have leaders for their own personal reasons decide to go elsewhere, even though you've built so much relationship over the years. So those have been quite challenging. I would say one of the most emotional charged ones was the very first story in my book is I said, there I was in tears, looking at my honeybee, was my wife, Joy, and saying, honey, can I really do this again? And so having that emotional moment where I was questioning so much. And then I'm not saying it was the most challenging moment, but it was one of the most about face decisions I made about 10 months ago. And it was, I knew I had all the talent, skills, and the duplication ability to teach it, to build a business in the more traditional sense. And I made a decision to learn the skills and the rapport and the teachability, if you will, of building it more as an influencer online. And so, and the book was a part of that. And so, yeah, to me, there's not one that stands out because all of them together made me who I am today, if that makes sense. And I now realized it's simply part of the journey.
Consistency is really important. We all know that. How do you stay consistent, Robert?
One is holding myself accountable. And one of my biggest ways to hold myself accountable is to check in. I have some key, upline, business partners. And even often enough on my daily task, I will call one of my key, mentors or two and say, hey, I'm doing this. Here's my goal, even on a daily goal. And I say, by the end of the day, by 5 p.m., I'm giving you permission to please text me and say, Robert, can I celebrate this with you? And if you, more than likely before that time frame, I will text you celebrating with you about what I've accomplished. And they'll say, great. And when I get it done much quicker, it's a dopamine rush, And so I have my daily accountability. I have my weekly accountability. I have my monthly, quarterly, yearly, to a point. And the other way I stay consistent is, one of my weak areas is structure. One of my areas of strength is my vision. And so where I stay most consistent in, I have an inner kind of, an inner gauge, if you will. I call them an inner way to, am I passing the mile markers on a highway? Okay. I have internal mile markers. And what I mean by that is a mile marker may be, okay, if I have my, whatever that day is, if it's a day of follow up or new connections or whatever, if I'm passing so many mileposts of live conversations, real-time conversations with individuals, that is one of my mile markers. If I have a mile marker of, am I putting value out as far as my content to attract the right people and tribe? Okay, that's a mile marker that I'm cruising by during my workday. And so I would say those are a couple of my major ones as far as to have different degrees of accountability. And I call it my inner milepost, if you will. And I have those that I know I'm hitting, that I know are really required of me to keep growing. So,
Hey, thank you so much for sharing your time, Robert. As we go towards the end of the show, some quick questions to pick your brain. And these can be quick, one word or one sentence. So the first one is, what is one of your favorite success quotes that motivates you?
how we do anything is how we do everything.
What's one habit that's helped you become successful?
The ability to continue to step forward through the doubts, the uncertainties, the fears, challenges, and just to keep consistently moving forward.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
I would say at the end of the day, and I'll make this piece of advice very specific to maybe this type of business we're in that we all love, is dance with those who are willing to dance. And at the end of the day, we don't really motivate people. Our job is to really find those people who are already motivated. And then we simply have to partner up with them and dance with them and run with them. The path that leads to burnout is when we think we have to be the motivator and the fuel for people, when in reality, our job is to inspire, be accountable, be that mentor. So.
What's your favorite prospecting tool you use now? Say you have a person who's a qualified prospect. Do you like to do face-to-face? Do you do Zoom? Do you sell personal video or company video? What do you like to use?
Yeah, it's normally a 1-2 punch. It's typically, once I know the specific area of focus for them, then I would typically share a couple resources. Typically, it's at least one more company-specific video, one a little more custom personalized video. So it's a couple of videos. And in some cases, it's a little short, little ebook, but the ebook has a little video, a couple videos within it.
What's your favorite app on your phone that's not a social media app?
Well, I'm just going to pull my phone out and say, what's the one I go to all the time? The one I'm on there pretty much every day these days is either InShot or CapCut, because I do a lot of my favorite form of content to produce is video. So that's one. That's social media related, though. Is that what you're asking?
No, that's good. CapCut and InShot.
Yeah.
Okay. What are 2 or 3 books you could recommend to ML Nation?
Yeah, I'm looking, sitting on my desk. I do, part of what I do with my team a lot is book clubs and things. Obviously, admittedly, I have not read your book yet. Your book on consistency is a topic that is hugely needed. The C muscle is so crucial. So Simon, I've been a student of yours. I took in many of your courses, and I will get my hands on that. One of my most impactful ones is, I'll just grab one. One is by T. Harv Eker. If you're watching this and you have, whether you're aware or unaware, all of us have a money blueprint. And I will say that of all the things that I had to really work on early on in my network marketing journey was the ability to give myself permission to receive wealth, to receive more wealth and abundance. And until I became clear on some of the baggage around wealth and money, and until I allowed myself to believe that I can be a good, godly man and a steward of that money and use it well, then my container to receive that was quite small. And until I expanded my ability to receive more abundance or income and money, it never grew that much. And so I had to really grow my ability to receive it. And then more money began to come in.
And here's the last question, the $1 million question. You ready? So imagine, Robert, you had to start all over again and you knew no one, but you had all your current knowledge, skills, and wisdom. What's the first thing or the first place you go to find prospects and build a network marketing business from scratch?
Well, it'd be a combination of what I'm doing today, which is a combination of Facebook and TikTok. and just get in there. I would find the right community of individuals who knew very crystal clearly the path to walk on, and plug in with that group and run with them. Be consistent, do the work, do it diligently and consistently, and then give myself permission to stop, adjust, tackle it again, stop, adjust, run it by this group of peers and coaches and team, and then do it again. So that's what I would do, Simon.
As we wrap up, do you have any last words of wisdom? And what's the best way our listeners can connect with you?
Yeah, my last words of wisdom is my goodness, you have so much light. Meaning, if you're watching this, you're already a proactive leader. You're showing up and stepping up, which the majority of the planet does not do. You're in that 2% of this population on the planet who are willing to grow and stretch and be more and step into your next level. And you have all the money, you have all the talent, you have all the imagination, and you have all the ability you need to create and step into and build your dream life and your business. And with that all in check, when that begins to happen, all I implore you to do is stay in a state of gratitude. Realize that it's not about me, not about Simon, not about any one of us. We're only going to build that because of a group of people around us, and be grateful for each and every breath, each and every step we take, to stay in gratitude. And how you can reach me is, it's a summation of my personal mission statement. My personal mission is to help each of us step into our God-given power and light and create vital health and abundance so we can give back greatly to the world around us. You find me by going to any of my social media platforms, are Force for Good Global. Force for FOR, good, and then global is my username on any major social media platform.
MLM Nation, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And today, you've been hanging out with Robert Arthur. So keep up the momentum and go to MLMNation.com, click on the podcast tab and the show notes of all the nuggets of wisdom that Robert shared, and there's a lot of them, and also the links to his social media, the links to his book will be right there. Definitely go follow him. And he's an amazing leader of a great, kind, purpose-driven heart. Hey, in order to be successful in life, in business, and network marketing, you must help others. So, Robert, thanks again for sharing your valuable time with MLM Nation. We're grateful to you, and we appreciate you for having a positive impact on millions of distributors worldwide. Thank you so much again, and God bless you. Hey, MLM Nation, the Simon Chan will recap from a very insightful and such important episode from Robert Arthur, because it talks about what holds people back, right? A lot of things. In this first episode 13, he talked about Sinaloa formula, which is safety in numbers and trust in the law of averages. And basically just a numbers game. And he talked about today was looking for the ones who want it, right? Instead of trying to convince people who don't want it, which leads to burnout, which I totally agree. Whether it's trying to convince people to join or trying to convince people to do something, it's just much easier finding the right people. So I love what he talked about that. And I think the big thing of this episode is courage. We all have doubts. We're all perfectly imperfect, including me. Yes, I'm perfectly imperfect. I was maybe if you looked at the YouTube video, I was playing around with this little necklace. And if you don't know what it is, it's a special AI necklace that records conversations. And I forgot to turn it on, all right? And then it didn't work. And then I had to use my backup. So actually, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can laugh at me. Go to the YouTube video. I talked about it. And by the way, AI is totally a game changer. It's one of my favorite tools, using AI to create content. I still do the content, but making it even better. And for this year, we've been spending a lot of time to level up our content at MLM Nation to serve you better. And when I saw Robert was telling me about his book. I said, hey, we need to get you back on the podcast. It's been 10 years, and I love this book, so much wisdom. And you talked about it's about we all have doubts. We're perfectly imperfect, but it's having that courage to go even when we're scared. Right? I was a little nervous in this podcast. It's been 10 years since that. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to listen to how I sounded 10 years ago. It was probably not good. But you keep going and you get better and better and better. So go check out his first episode, episode 13. It's in the MLM Nation archives. If you're looking on the Spotify or on the Apple, or just go to MLMNation.com. We have the links in there where you can listen to it. But in this one, really, it's about the vision, having the courage. We're all perfectly imperfect, but we just go and do it. And go out there and create trust, give value, right? The easiest people to convince are the ones who trust you. And it's like, I was sharing with someone I was doing coaching with me. It's like a bank account. The more you deposit in that trust bank account by doing favors, by helping out, be a person of value on social media, giving, then people will go out there and believe in you. They'll buy from you. A lot of good stuff there from Robert Arthur. So thank you. Definitely follow him. And I know he's giving a lot of freebies and stuff for his book. So definitely want to check that out before the book launches. A lot of freebies, a lot of nuggets. And one last thing is like two other things is grace. Give yourself grace. If things are not working well, instead of being so hard on yourself, you got to be accountable, but give yourself some grace. And also accountability is really important. I needed accountability. Actually, today I'm excited because today I have my accountability partner. First Thursday of each month, I get my monthly accountability. I always have a weekly accountability. I have different accountability. And I have a daily accountability as well. So, but my monthly one's the one I've been doing for the longest. I love it. We share updates. And it also forces me to stay on track to do in many ways, you are all my accountability partners because I share my journey with you and how I'm staying consistent. And now we're like, 840 episodes in. I'm still doing it. I'm here out to serve. And that's why I have 2025 is an amazing year. A couple of freebies for you before we go. If you missed it, I did a goal setting guide. I spent a lot of time preparing. Go out there and check it out. Just go to MLMNation.com and you see it. If you don't see it, message me. It'll teach you how to set proper goals for 2025. I think it'll be very valuable for you. And that's all I have, everyone. Have an amazing January. Let's go crush it. Talk about 90-day goals. But thanks again to Robert Arthur. By the way, go follow him and subscribe to us on the YouTube. Watch us on there. And also, please leave us a review. It really matters. I want to lift up the profession. So please take 1 minute to leave a review. It doesn't need to be a 5-star review. It could be a 1-star. If you don't like me, if you don't like my voice, sure. But leave me a review. Give us some feedback. I want to know. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your part of this amazing profession. Now go out there, take what you learned, and have a positive impact on someone's life. God bless.